How it be, bitches? It's me, Cell Block Psycho, back to you for another Halloween where we cover our favorite 90s children television show, Goosebumps. Yeah, that's right. It's time to shit all over this classic childhood show all over again. Let's get into it. No, what are you doing? No, nobody wants to see that shit. Just get in the video, come on, let's do it.
Years ago, I covered all 62 original books in the series, but I never really got around to covering any of the short story novels that R.L. Stine released intermittently. That's right, Stine did a couple of short stories all thrown together in compilations called Tales to Give You Goosebumps. Many of the covers of these books featured a predominantly forgotten mascot of the series, Curly the Skeleton. Anyone remember this guy? No? Just me? Okay. Anyway, since I've already covered the episode adaptation of one of these short stories before, I thought I'd do it again, because why not?
And that's why I'm covering today's episode, The House of No Return. Okay.
We start the episode with three of the most stereotypical 90s kids I've ever seen, waiting outside a really creepy and spooky mansion. Meet Robbie, Nathan, and Lori. Yeah, that's right, Lori. They're members of an exclusive club of brave preteens called Danger Incorporated. What does this club do, you may ask? Well, they mostly just dare kids to go inside the spooky mansion so they can get new members. The only problem, no one wants to go inside that mansion for more than a few minutes.
Somebody help me!
Now that's a convincing scream if I ever heard one.
With their most recent initiate failing their test, our dynamic trio is once again faced with the task of finding yet another new member. Luckily for them, there's a new kid in town who is ripe for the taking. But unknown to them, he's got the charisma and speech skills of a motherfucking champion.
Yes.
Will you make me a cheeseburger when I get back?
Okay.
With bacon?
Always making deals.
Come on, Mom, with bacon.
Okay. With bacon. Now go on.
And what's the deal with stereotypical mother characters being poorly acted in this show?
Danger Incorporated eventually runs into Chris, and they try to get him to join their little club. Only Chris is pretty straight up with him about not liking the idea of being scared.
You like horror movies, don't you?
No, actually I cover my eyes during the scary parts.
You know, you're not being as intimidating as you think you're being, Chris.
Yeah, so, I'm really scared of scary movies.
Yo, girl. I'm fucking scared of scary movies, girl. How about you?
Despite Chris being really straightforward with them, they take him to the house anyway to show him what he's missing. They tell him the spooky story of the old place, where years ago, a married couple built the old house, and because of shoddy construction, their newborn child fell through one of the floorboards to her death, and the couple starved themselves to death from grief.
I thought this was a kid's show!
So naturally, Chris is like, nah, fuck that shit, and he pieces the fuck out.
I'll see you guys later.
So later that night, Danger Incorporated comes together for their annual meeting, where they just collectively restate the obvious, that they need a new member. And it certainly sucks that they don't have one.
Chris has a lot of nerve turning us down.
Yeah. He is kind of stuck up, isn't he?
Yeah, new kid. I'm a chicken, la-di-da!
I'm sorry, the dialogue in this show sometimes is a little too much for me.
So with no other clear option, they decide to lie to Chris about heading to the mall so they can jump him and force him inside the haunted house.
Help me! Help! Help! Let me go! Get the door! Help me! Help!
Don't worry, Chris. All you gotta do is stand there for a whole hour.
You see, that's why you gotta put your stats in something other than charisma, Chris.
Now that we're actually inside the house, the real spooks can begin. After banging on the door for a few minutes, Chris decides to finally just give up and vibe with the house for a while. Really have to admit, I don't know what the interior decorator was going with the random cloths on all the walls and furniture, but that is definitely a unique style for interior decorating, I'll give them that much. However, what I can't vibe with is these horrible special effects. That's not all, though. This house has a few more tricks up its sleeve. Like when Chris decides to do a little whistling. The house doesn't like that too much, it decides to break a vase. But thankfully, there's a nice, cleanly ghost on duty tonight.
You see, most ghosts these days, they don't even have the common courtesy to clean up after themselves. 4 stars. 4 stars on hauntedhouse.com.
But what I really am a fan of is their style of clocks they decide to keep around their house.
Beware the house of no return.
It's a cuckoo clock-a-doodle.
Guess it was season 3 at that point, so they tried to get away with as many reused props as they could. Chris wasn't really a fan of the spooky clock, as that was just too much for him all at once.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
He decides he's going to try to make it out the front door, but the ghosts don't want him to leave just yet, as they have their special shoddy effects boarding up the door.
What I want to know is, where do these ghosts get those pieces of wood? Have they been shopping at Home Depot?
Chris tries to break the door down, but that's not before a spooky voice calls from upstairs.
What?
Well, that was a transition.
Nothing, I just wanted to make sure you were awake.
What a bitch.
So the kids decide that Chris has done his part and lasted a full hour inside the house. They decide to go inside and fetch him. Slowly and cowardly, they try to make their way inside the house and end up having to break the door down, only to notice that the door had been boarded from the inside.
Why would Chris board up the door? Maybe he didn't.
What is that supposed to mean?
I don't know.
They wander about the house, but they can't seem to find Chris. Not a sign, not a figment, not a hint of him ever even being in there. They decide to leave themselves, and that's when they notice that the door had boarded itself behind them. They think Chris was the one that boarded up the door, but the ghosts are very quick to correct them on that.
Well, Chris probably did that while we were in the other room.
I don't think so.
Hello? Who said that?
I did.
I did is not actually a proper answer, Bob. Who the fuck is Bob?
Now we get to see the ghosts firsthand, and boy, is this the least threatening group of ghosts I've ever seen in any media ever. The husband especially looks like a dork. Man, you gotta love the obvious spotlight on these guys too. Turns out, the ghosts, they just wanted children. They would have kept Chris, but Chris decided to rank up his barter skill just enough to pass a check with the ghosts.
Oh, you could never make the kind of deal he made. Very pleasing to my wife.
What kind of a bargain was it?
He promised that if we let him go, 3 children would take his place.
You know, I for one would have actually liked to see the kid barter with the ghosts, because I'm curious as to what he said, but, you know, this kid's acting chops, I don't think they were right. They weren't there yet. They weren't there. He wasn't ready for that scene.
Unfortunately for Danger Incorporated, they didn't have the same luck. So yeah, they fucking dead.
Dramatically timed lightning!
And that was The House of No Return. It's an episode that I found spooky as a kid, but today I just found it completely goofy. Honestly, you can say that about almost all the episodes on this show, but some episodes hold up better over others. This one had a few good moments, all things considered, but the corny moments override a bit of the spook factor. Not completely, mind you. I think the music is pretty good and builds up a good atmosphere. And a few scenes in the house are decent, with exceptions to some of the bad special effects. Unfortunately, the ghosts themselves are rather unintimidating. Not that I would have expected them to, but they remind me of something you would see at your local haunted house and amusement park rather than something creepy on television. But again, this is a kid's show, so I guess we can't go too spooky with the ghosts. I'll give it a pass. Overall, I'll give this episode a 6 out of 10. Closer to a 5 than a 7, but a decent romp overall for later in the season.
Alrighty guys, I wanted to cover way more Goosebumps episodes this year, but I really just didn't have the time. But thankfully I got this one out just before Halloween. I'm literally recording this, like, on the night of October 29th, so I was really running it close here. Anyway guys, thank you for joining me this year while I covered this one episode of Goosebumps. Next year I'll be sure to cover more bumps. Maybe I'll even get into the episode The Cuckoo Clock of Doom. If the time's right. See you then.